So you, what was I even asking about? Oh, I was asking about like your podcast and like kind of kitchen table content type stuff that you make.
Okay, yeah. So we mirror image the team ministry that we have at Hopewell. We have before the pandemic, we were meeting on Wednesdays, and once the pandemic hit, everything moved to Zoom, and I could tell that weekly Zooms, in addition to the kids staring at a computer screen all day long for school, like it got old real fast. So we started to switch to a different format. So I made videos, little 5 minute videos with like a nice lesson and something to make them laugh a little bit, and we would alternate. So that's kind of our format now. So we'll do the video one Wednesday, the next Wednesday we do a Zoom, and the next Wednesday it'll be a video that they watch that we post on our social media outlets. So
do you feel like it's getting through just the same?
um, I think that it's it's a little better. It's a little better.
Really?
I think it's a little better because um, it gives them something. It's just like 5 minutes instead of an hour on Zoom,
Mm-hmm.
and what they take in that 5 minutes, they actually retain.
Yeah.
So then the following Zoom, we normally just touch on what that was and answer any questions they have on it and kind of forward that discussion. So I think it's working a lot better.
So it's interesting to me, coming from kind of the creator background just the same, and this is very much creator activity. What you're doing, it's a very live and real thing,
Hmm.
just as well, right? It's not digital only. It's very much a mix of like, okay, well, we were together in person. Now we're navigating.
Yeah.
But the difference between what a million views may look like to somebody who just puts content out for these super large audiences, right?
Mm.
But for somebody like yourself that's making content for a very specific, very small audience, and like if you've got 10 people in your group, getting 15 or 20 views feels like a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. It does. It does, and sometimes it's a struggle to get to that to the 10 or 15.
Uh-huh.
But our thought process, and I'm saying our because I have another thing that we do too. But um, the thought process behind that is always just whoever sees it is who's supposed to see it,
Mm-hmm.
and as long as we're reaching who is supposed to see it, we're completely fine. Because it's not for the views. It's just it's for the purpose behind it. It's for the work. So, but the other thing that we do is it's like a relationship podcast,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what me and my wife do. It's called Until Forever, and that we do the recording and the video and all that too, and that's a little more deep, a little more intimate. So yeah, that's what we're doing.
That's the play on words right there. The
Yeah.
intimate relationship podcast.
There you go. There you go.
And that brings us into episode 44. And I told Corey that I was going to mispronounce his name, just like everybody at some point in time mispronounces his name. Corey Cawthon,
There you go.
not Carthon.
No.
I worked very diligently for 2 weeks to get this, or 2 weeks, 2 days to get this kind of ironed out on my tongue. An interesting person living his interesting life, tied deeply into this little old place we call home, Carbondale, Illinois, and kind of part of this impromptu series of District 95 school board candidates, which I hadn't really anticipated doing, but you've all made yourselves available and are interested in this conversation. So thanks for being cool and like really stoked when I reached out, man.
Hey, it's a pleasure, man. It's an honor to be here on this platform and be able to, I guess, express my views. So I'm glad to be here, man. It's awesome.
So let's talk about kind of where those views come from to begin with, because this is really where we start the show, and whether it's a question that I get to like 30 minutes in or like in the first 2 minutes, the question is always, how did you come to be in Carbondale? And before we started the podcast, you were talking about your grandpa coming here, and did you say it was grandpa that was a preacher?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So we got my grandfather moved here I really don't know if my dad was with him then when he moved here, but he moved here to pastor a church, and Faith Temple Church of God in Christ. It's still on North Marion Street, 604 North Marion Street. So um, and that was the church I grew up in. I was born in Indianapolis, Indiana. And then my mother and father got married when I think was two. I think I was 2, and moved to Carbondale and moved back to Indianapolis for like a year or two, and then moved here to Carbondale to stay. And I've been here ever since, except for a year when I got married. My wife and I moved to Chicago for a year and decided that that was not for us, and we moved right back here to Carbondale.
Dude, that's what this place does, man. You leave and you're like, I'm gonna go see what it's like to break out elsewhere, and then you're like, it was real good in Carbondale.
Yeah. Yes.
Guess that's where we're going back to.
Yep.
So coming out of Indianapolis, so that's not too far of a drive to like. You got to go back and visit, extended family and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it there, man. Indianapolis is great. It's just I don't know what it is about Carbondale. I mean, of course, everyone says it was amazing, blah blah blah, whatever, and now it's going downhill. I have a lot of hope in Carbondale. I really believe Carbondale is an amazing place. I believe that it's growing. It's going to get better. I love it here, man. I grew up with, and not to get too deep.
No, this is it, man. This is what we do on this podcast. We get deep, so go for it. However deep you want to go, man.
I grew up. If you scroll down my Facebook feed, I always pride myself in my Facebook feed because it's very multicultural. But my wife, on the other hand, she won't mind me saying this. She grew up on the South Side, Chicago, where most of her friends they look like her. They're black, and I have a lot of different friends from different backgrounds and different cultures, and I want nothing more but for my children to have that same experience. I think that's an amazing experience, and there's not very many places you can go where you can have that experience, and to have it here in Carbondale, I just wouldn't trade that. It's an amazing thing. So.
It seems like if it's not every podcast, it's every other podcast. I get to go into my little spiel of you don't have to go to the world comes to you. Yeah. That's just what this place is.
Yep.
Like they exist. Sorry that I had my phone buzz off, man. My apologies for being
it happens.
Rude. Got all sidetracked. No, I mean you're talking about like growing up with folks, and I see that. I was driving just through a neighborhood, putting a sign out the other day, and it's just you look at the people, you see the people interact with one another. Like there's still like neighborly activity going on in Carbondale. It's not 100% just walled off and like everybody's in their own little space even now, and maybe it was just that it was the first real nice day out of the season that like literally everyone was like, get me out of this house.
It may have something to do with it. I don't know. Yeah, you're right. I think I don't know. I did grow up on the northeast side of town, but going to school and seeing so many different races and colors and backgrounds and creeds. I mean, you can't beat that, man. And I don't know if we can say names. I ain't gonna say names.
Yeah, I mean, here's what I will say to that is that this is already kind of become a platform in terms of the podcast specifically, right? Where like people are comfortable associating themselves with it. So I don't think that naming names is an out of the box thing, but also if you don't feel comfortable doing it, don't feel like obligated to name names, right? But I mean, go ahead.
Oh, you're good, man. But just like a handful of like the people I would consider like best friends growing up. There were a couple of black ones, and there was a guy who was white and Pakistani mixed. Mm-hmm. And there was, a bunch of, I don't know, I don't know. 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 I don't know just a lot of it's hard to explain it, but
Different people, man.
it's
Just
yes,
that's all it is. People
yes,
that don't look or sound or necessarily have the same cultural backgrounds as the folks that they're intermeshing with and creating this like much wider cultural experience.
absolutely, absolutely, and I think that's important. I think it's important to grow up with that experience, because a lot of times you run into, for example, like a black child. If that black kid grew up around black people all his life and was able to, be who he is. Not that he should be someone different when he gets around other people, but a lot of times if you're not, if you don't have an open concept of, everybody don't act like this, then sometimes you put yourself in the box and you'll be uncomfortable and you won't know that, just be yourself, and who's going to accept you will accept you, and who doesn't, forget them, don't worry about them, just keep it moving. But just having that level of comfort and being able to, you hear a lot about, black people going into corporate America, and they'll walk into a room and it's just them and just a room full of other white people, and there's that discomfort that's there, and of course that's natural. But for me, it wasn't as strong because I had that experience of being able to grow up around white, black, red, yellow, whatever. So it's a good thing. Carbondale's great.
Well, and I had never thought about it in this terms until you're kind of discussing, having to navigate these different environments as somebody on the external, right? Like the one black person in a board full of white people walking in the door, right?
Absolutely.
That in Carbondale, a difference is right where code switching and adaptation to your surroundings in many other places may be a form of just strictly survival, right? Like I'm the sole or one of few people of a particular color, of a particular national origin, of a particular religion in a sea of people that are not my same race, are not my same cultural background, are not my same religion. I have to assimilate fully into them and have to learn how to navigate multiple spaces just by sheer force of it. In Carbondale, it's almost like that's part of the playfulness of getting to engage with folks that don't have that same skin color, religious background, cultural background, whatever it may be. That like, okay, what I can go and do here is actively come out of my shell and adapt to somebody's environment, but I'm not like forced to be there the entire time and like stay. I told myself, I told you before this podcast, I wasn't going to talk too darn much, but here I am talking too much, Corey.
It's fine. I'm loving it. It's fine, man. I have no issues at all.
So is part of this what kind of has an interest for you looking at school board as well? Like, is this an underlying component of like, I want to be part of what influences this continued?
That's a lot of it. I think my main driving factor is that I just got tired of sitting around complaining. Like, I know a lot of teachers. I know even my family's full of teachers.
Yeah.
And I have family members that teach in Chicago, Springfield, different areas, and you sit around and you complain, and well, they should be doing this, or why are they doing it that way, or why are the tests like this, or blah blah blah, and why should it, and you complain and never do anything. You just you wake up the next morning and everything you complained about is still a complaint. Like, that's a stressful life to live, to see issues and problems and not do anything about them. So I got to the point to where if these things are this heavy on me, then I need to put myself in the position to where I can do something about them, at least to get, the issues heard, at least to have a voice for those that, have these issues, but they don't have the platform to express it. So that's the main driving factor behind me attempting to get on to the school board. I have a very unique perspective with District 95. Being that I was, I grew up in District 95, so I remember, Thomas and Parish School. I remember going there. I remember Lincoln Junior High, which is now rubble and
Yeah.
police station there. But I remember it. I remember going to school and the teachers, and it was crazy seeing Mr. Moore and Mr. Garth and just different teachers that are still there even now. But I have that perspective of growing up in the district and then working in the district. I spent some time as an aide at the middle school, and I made a lot of connections there that, kind of transferred over to a mirror image where a lot of the kids that I ran into there became a part of our teen ministry at the church. So then after having that perspective, I also have the perspective of having 3 children that are in the district. So I'm completely invested in District 95, and to be able to have a seat at the table that has the perspective of growing up in the district, working in the district, and having children in the district, I think is very important. So
that's a blend of commitments
Yes.
with a lot of different perspectives, man.
yes, absolutely.
Oh my gosh, how old are the kids now?
Okay,
And you're like, hold on, let me
give me in trouble.
take your time. Take your time. If we gotta do a cut, we'll do a cut. we'll give you the 5 minutes you need to go look up everybody's birthdays on the phone.
So my oldest, his was my son Caleb. He's a Thomas. He's in second grade. See, and he's 7. He'll be 8 in April. And then Kirsten is at Parish. She's in kindergarten, and she'll be in first grade. She is 6, and she'll be 7 in October. And then the baby girl is in preschool, and she is 4. Yes, because she just had a birthday on the 22nd, turned 4, February 22nd.
What is it like having the kids with birthdays that are all so? My kids, I got 2 stepkids and my biological son. They're all like the 2 twins and my son, and like everybody's 10.
Oh
right?
man!
So like there's that, but like then there's like the stepping, like the step ladder, step stool, or whatever the stairs of like 4, 6, 8, right? Like
yeah.
How has that been? Just watching everybody kind of grow up and pull each other along as they go along.
It's fun. I love it. Man. I love my kids like crazy, but there's so many different angles with that because you want to pass clothes down. But Caleb and Kirsten, they're so similar in size, and then he's a boy, so she's not really wearing any of his clothes or anything. And then Caitlin, which is the baby, they definitely treat her like the baby, but she developed a lot faster than they did because she's been running trying to keep up with them. So it's kind of fun. But the 2 older ones, they starting to tag team and get in trouble a lot. So other than that, I bet they doing something right now. I guarantee it. But
it's going to be funny because you're going to have the youngest one leapfrog the oldest 2, and then start having to
exactly
be the adult in the room as the youngest sibling.
Yeah, but they're a handful, but I wouldn't trade them for the world. Yeah, they're great.
That's good, man. Yeah, I mean, you can only you got your kids, and that's what you stick with. It's like I don't want somebody else's kids. I want my kids. I've made these. No matter how of relation. The fact is, I've helped to shape the the individuals that they are
exactly
and becoming now. Was there a lot of this kind of charge of service that came from growing up in the with a grandfather who was a preacher?
Maybe, because that lifestyle was very different. We were very, very, very churched. Like everything revolved around the church. You get out of school and there's something going on at church. Our weekly church schedule growing up, Monday night was youth night. Tuesday night was like another church service, evangelistic night, I think they called it. And then there was a Friday night service, and then Saturday choir rehearsal, and then Sunday Sunday school, Sunday morning, then the Sunday morning service, and then there was normally a program or something we had to travel to, and then we had a 6 o'clock Sunday Bible study, and then a Sunday night service that started at 7. So we very much were churched. Like that was really everything. But as I got older, I don't know, man. I have such a huge heart for children, and especially teenagers, that middle school to freshman sophomore age, and it's more so direction, like making sure that they're going in the right direction, making sure that they understand that there's nothing they can't do, understanding that the sky's the limit, man. Like you. And because this was one big major point in my life, because we were so churched, my brain never said, what do I want to do outside of church? It was always something about church. So I'm a musician,
Okay.
and I taught our choir, growing up or whatever, and that was normally the mindset. So I spent a lot of time, I don't want to say wasted, but I spent a lot of time just focusing on church stuff and it didn't translate to real world activities like, okay, so we're going to do for a job now. What you going to do? So, I spent a lot of time goofing off in high school. My classmates would tell you I was definitely a class clown. It was more important for me to make people laugh than it was to make sure I got good grades. So when senior year hit, and I watched those same friends get to goof off, they'll go to OJT or something for the back end of the day, or just spending in the learning center because they got all their credits already. When I had to go to summer school to make sure I passed government, or I wouldn't have been able to walk in May. My mom would tell you she was nervous sending out invitations because she wasn't sure if I was going to make it or not. So when it comes to, kids, especially when I see them going down a path to where they're making decisions that aren't going to steer them in the right direction and make sure that they have their grades and stuff, I remind them of that. I don't mind sharing with them. Bro, I probably flunked algebra 2 or 3 times. Yeah. Like, I don't mind sharing that with them because, I think kids need to see that adults aren't perfect, number one. Yeah. And they don't expect them to be perfect, but we do expect you to have some sort of direction. We expect you to try. We expect you to understand that you have a life after your classroom experience, and what you do now is going to determine how far, you could potentially go. So that's my drive, man. It's just to make sure that kids are not only placed in the position to succeed, but that they know their role in their success and that they're making sure that they're focused on it.
Do you feel like the vulnerability helps move the conversation?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Even with my own kids, I don't, my son, of course, I grew up where if they bad, you beat they behinds. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Spare the rod, spoil the child.
Belt's coming right out.
Yeah. Well, what I try to do with my kids, man, is, I understand you were angry. I get angry too, and anger makes me, I get mad. I recently told Caleb, if he gets mad, grab your pillow and just scream in your pillow. It's fine to express your anger, but you'll get in trouble if you express that anger the wrong way. Yeah. So, I just, stuff like that. And then telling him how, I expressed it wrong one time. I punched the door and put a hole in the door. Then I got in trouble because I put a hole in the door, So then he sees, okay, so it's okay for me to feel this emotion. I'm not in trouble because I'm mad. Yeah. I'm in trouble because of something I did. So now the response, for what I did, me being angry, I just have to deal with this anger appropriately. Yeah. So that's what I try to do with my kids. So.
Well, and that feels like a very appropriate application. You would use the example of failing the algebra class, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, teach people you're allowed to fail.
Yes,
you're allowed to fail multiple times, right? What you're not allowed to do is just walk away.
Right.
From something that is important in this case, right? There are things that you're allowed to walk away from in general that may be bad or problematic or what have you, but like you can't just walk away from basic knowledge that you need to know and understand.
Absolutely.
Man, that's a cool feeling, and to just like think about, being able to tell. So it's like, no, it's not the one time failing of the algebra class that's doing this. It's literally if you give up on the whole thing because of that. That's the character. I mean, character sounds like what you're more instilling than anything.
Oh my goodness, character is very important. It's very important, and I don't, I think that's another thing. My District 95, uh, promoting myself for, but I think that's another thing that a lot of teachers have to realize is in the classroom that character building is important.
Yeah.
What I don't want, and I don't think there's a lot of teachers out here doing this, but what I don't want is teachers that are teaching for the paycheck.
Yeah.
They go there, here's your homework, get it done, or don't. I don't care if you do it or not. I'm just gonna put it down as an F, and then going about their business. And I just I want teachers in the district that love our kids and that love them enough to go the extra mile, to make sure that they understand that their character says a lot about their lives, and that every single day you're building on what is your character. Every single day, the way you approach the day, the way you're perceived at approaching your day, the decisions you decide to make, all of that is adding to your character. So, absolutely.
No, and we've been lucky to have, all of the instructors that the Twins have had at District 95 in the 3 years now that they've gone. Watch me get in trouble for not knowing dates now, Corey. we're gonna both tread this water. But I mean that's it. I mean just yesterday, Miss Opp, the Twins teacher now, she took she had just a little outdoor get together for a handful of her students to be like, listen, we're just as close in person as we've ever been, apart from one another. Like, just you still got to be, social.
Yes.
And in it with these with your fellow students, like have peers, like having peers and building character off of interaction with your peers is not an easy thing to like ask teachers to try and build out in this time, but they're
Very
doing
true.
it, whether they're being asked to or not.
Very true. Yes. Yes. Oh boy, all this trouble we getting into today. What's my son's teacher's name? Oh man, I cannot think of her name.
Hey, just say my son's teacher.
My son's teacher is amazing. She, and my son Caleb, he just started going back. We elected for our kids to go back in person after the break. And she said, well, Caleb can come back, now if he wants. So the last week was his first week back in the classroom. And Purcell, I knew it would come to me. Mrs. Purcell, she's an amazing teacher. And I've watched, over the computer how she has connected with my son.
Yeah.
And how he can tell that she cares. He can tell that she's there for him, and just how welcoming because he's very, very, very shy, which is weird because my other daughter, the one under him, is extremely outgoing. Like they're polar opposites. So I was very concerned about him going back because, it's a new school for one. This is his first year at Thomas.
Yeah.
And, a new environment, new teacher, never been in the classroom. Or hasn't been since, March of last year.
Yeah.
So now we have to, it's like, these jitters, the new school jitters and all that. When I tell you she made it so smooth and comfortable for him, like I commend Mrs. Purcell. She's a great, great teacher. Great teacher.
What whew, just making the decision to go back in person. Did you have a tough time as as husband and wife kind of making this decision?
Yes.
Or was it one of those things that it felt like, this is what's right for our kids, and it just kind of rolled right out?
No, absolutely no. We back and forth at least 12 or 13 times.
Right, yeah.
It's do we risk it and send them back, or do we just keep them here? And I mean, and there was different things that helped make that decision. My mother, who is absolutely amazing, has been the teacher, I guess, because my wife and I we both work, so she's been the one that's making sure that those schedules are kept and they're on the computer when they're supposed to be, and they're keeping up with them, making them do the work. And it's very hard for a kid to this is the house, this is where I play, it's where I hang out. Like, why do I have to sit here and be still and pay attention? Like, I don't want to do that right now. So she's had to struggle with that for so long, and I can tell she's getting to the point to where she's like, okay, y'all can take them on and sit in the school. Which I'm sure if it took another 3 years, I'm sure she would do it for another 3 years. But that played a role in it. And then also it's just the social thing. And I need for them to be able to be around other kids. Of course, safely. We want it to be done safely. So we spend a lot of time talking to them about masks. They've got a drawer full of masks that we keep them, so they know to keep them on, they know how to wear them, and they know not to take them off. And so, we're just going to trust that they're going to make the right decisions and that the teachers are going to keep them safe. So
I love that you touched on, did you say it was your mom or your
my mom? Yeah.
Okay, your mom. So Kathy and I talked a little bit a couple of days ago on just what it is to be a grandparent in this time, and like the importance of grandparents, not just for her being a grandparent, but the importance of her parents as grandparents when she had her kids, and now that her kids are grown and have kids, and her importance as a grandparent, and you're on the same side of this coin, man. Just like understanding that it's the world we live in, and without having grandparents in some way, shape, or form, this would be very, very difficult to manage.
Yes. And Kathy Field is awesome, by the way. We grew up. We spent a couple of years. I couldn't tell you how long we lived there.
You're Claire's age, right?
I'm a little older than Claire.
Just a little bit older.
A little older than
Claire. Beat
Claire.
up for even thinking that Claire's near 39.
You gonna get in trouble for real.
That's back to back on the podcast. I'm really gonna get yelled at next time I see her. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, we lived next door to them for a while, and you didn't think of it then because we were just kids, but. My sister and I, we would run next door, knock on the door, and ask if Claire and Katie could come out and play. And we would go in their backyard. We go in our backyard. They had some games on Nintendo that I didn't have, so I got to go in there and play the Nintendo. And but thinking back, like, wow, so here's this little black boy playing with two little white girls, and nobody has a problem with it. So when everything Kathy says is like she means it from her heart. She is an amazing individual. She really is.
No, I mean, and that's another part of just living in this community, that the people that say stuff like this aren't just running around saying stuff like this because it's the sociable thing to do, right? It's not in vogue just to be anti-racist in Carbondale. It's like there's a reason why we are like this, because we understand that the problems that have persisted when we haven't been actively like this, and we're going to deal with them by just turning the knob up. I don't even know how to best make an analogy out of that, but that's so cool. Right, and then to grow up, right, and then you start to contextualize these people that you've known as a figure, and they've come from this figure as, it's Claire and Katie's mom, and now it's, this is Kathy that I know.
Yes. 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 Yeah. It's great. It's great. It speaks to her character. And then at the same time, it also it also goes to show that racism is learned behavior.
Yeah.
Um, Being prejudiced, all that, it's learned behavior. And if you raise your children the right way, and that's a part of schools, is if we do this right, we don't have to have another storm of the Capitol. You know, if we do it the right way, it's the long game. It's how you get rid of the hate in the world.
Yeah.
Is everybody doing their part, playing the long game and doing it their way. So
And and then it becomes wild to think that if it's learned behavior out, it's learned behavior in.
yes,
And it means that there are still people teaching that into
Yep.
next generations.
Absolutely,
That's wild.
absolutely.
Ugh. um, do you have anybody else that kind of sticks out in your mind that as you've grown up and you've become an adult yourself and now you're doing things that like put you on display as an adult where you're like, oh, this person used to be a figure and now I'm actually level with them, and that's now there's a person relationship.
I don't know. Not that I can. Not that I can think of.
And that was a real specific question, so it's
Yeah.
reasonable to not like just not have an answer for something that's like, hey, do you have this like laser focused answer to this question that's just an interesting relationship to the discussion that we were just having? No, that's
I want to have an answer so bad. I can't
it'll
think
come
of
around, man. We'll talk for another 20 minutes. You'll be like, oh my gosh, this person sticks out in my mind as like that fit. How well, I'm running through my mind. This is I don't usually get caught up on having to think through. Well, what am I missing? Where am I going? There in a little bit of what you say, it feels like there is a lot of a person
Mm,
in there. If that makes sense,
It
like
does.
You
it does. I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
Where'd you get the class clown components from? Where'd you get kind of the jokester side?
I have no clue. I think my whole family's just goofy like that. Man, uh, my cousin Anthony and I, um, we used to, while the preaching was going on, when we should have been paying attention, we would sneak out to the like the foyer type area,
Uh-huh.
and we would play a game called Make Me Laugh. And we would literally, all right, it's your turn. And I would sit there and put all this pressure on him to make me laugh. So, like, he would have to come up with something. And he was always amazing at it. I was terrible. Like, and it's my turn, and he's either that or he was really good at doing his best to not laugh. I'm going to have to ask him that. But, like, we grew up playing that. And I don't know. We just, and to this day, we crack each other up. So I don't know. I think I use humor a lot to deal with life, you know.
Yeah.
So I think maybe that's where it came from. But I was a jokester. I like to. I do think a lot of it too was acceptance. My dad and we didn't have the best relationship.
Mm-hmm.
He was very hardcore. He died when I was 15.
Oh, man.
But and he was there. I don't want to put the impression that he wasn't a good father, because he worked. He was a city employee. He worked very hard. He put food on the table. He was at home every night. He wasn't, a mean person or whatever, but he was just a very stern, hard individual.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I would look around and see all these father-son relationships, where, come here, son, let's play catch in the yard,
Uh-huh.
that kind of stuff. But we didn't have that dynamic.
Yeah.
And I always, when the night that he had his stroke, he had a stroke,
Okay.
and died after being in the hospital for a week. But the night before he had a stroke, he had told me, come on, get in the car. We're going to the movie store, and he was trying to drop off a movie.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know, I was playing Sega Genesis or something. I didn't want to go. So I sat in the car with an attitude that entire time. And, I guess he could tell I had attitude. He didn't say much to me. We got back to the house, and that was the last time I saw him alive. So that that weighed on me a lot. And I think it also created this need for acceptance,
Mm-hmm.
or this need um, for what's the word I'm looking for? I guess to be liked,
Yeah.
to be liked. So that definitely translated in school to where if they're laughing at me, they like me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So and then it just turned into whenever I do stuff, um, I would do it and seek approval. Like, I drew a picture. Here, what do you think about it? So you think I could do better? What do you want me to? And I mean, even today, like, I'm a preacher, so when I preach, I'll ask my pastor, "Hey, critique it. Tell me what you thought. Where can
Uh-huh.
I improve?" And I tell myself it's because I want to be better, which it is. But there's a part of me that's like, where's the acceptance?
Yeah.
But then there's also that part of me that um, I don't. It's not. I don't think I have low self-esteem, but it's very difficult for me to put myself out there too.
Mm-hmm.
So like this whole campaign thing has been the craziest experience ever. I have never, like, to see my name on the sign is just weird.
Yeah.
For me to go to, hey, vote for me, and I'm in my head I'm thinking, why should they vote for me though? Like, So
Yeah.
it's kind of it's kind of a struggle to put myself out there, even though I know I'm the person that needs to be voted for because of how strongly I feel about,
Mm-hmm.
the children, and being able to put them in the position to succeed. It's still always been hard to kind of push myself. So, yeah.
You should never feel comfortable in asking somebody for the power of their vote,
That's good.
because the moment that you start to feel comfortable
Mm-hmm.
asking somebody for that much power,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter if it's president of the United States or school board, that
Wow.
your comfort level with either having or seeking power is too complacent, and you should not be in power.
That
I
is
had
very
that
good.
conversation with somebody a couple weeks ago,
Wow, that is very good.
and it's reasonable. And what's cool in this instance is, right, you've developed some of the coping mechanisms to help navigate that feeling,
Mm-hmm.
because it's not an easy feeling to, like, just take from the middle of your neck and just push down into your stomach
Yeah.
and try and keep it there. Man, how long? So I've got a good friend whose father passed away when he was in his late teens,
Mm-hmm.
as well, and it had a pretty profound impact on him. I mean, to this point, because he still has to work to take care of, the family in a certain way, but also just feeling like, it was at a pivotal point in his life where he missed some things. Do you feel like there was a period of time following his death that it was really tough to kind of get just life to be where you wanted it to be, however you wanted it to be?
Uh, I don't know. Um, I think his death affects me in sections, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, at first, when it first happened, um, I cried when I found out. I cried at the funeral, and that was it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't allow myself to think about it. So I kind of treated it like it didn't happen. It wasn't real,
Mm-hmm.
and now I need to be a big guy, a big boy,
Yeah.
and try to be the man of the house or whatnot. And then later on, started having children and stuff. I have an older daughter. Before I got married, she'll be 19 at the end of the month. So, when she came into the picture, and um, and of course the children with my wife, then it hit me then, because you know they will never know their grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's that part of me that just knows he wouldn't be so stern and hard with these kids. So maybe I would get to see that side of him now.
Mm-hmm.
The big teddy bear guy that
Yeah.
that I know it's in there. So maybe my kids can pull it out of him.
Uh-huh.
So I to know that I never will get to see that. That part started affecting me too. So it's just in sections. When you hit milestones, um, it affected me then. But I really don't think it affects me any other way. I think it's just kind of in sections like that.
Well, and I feel like there's a lot of positive that has come out of it because you've drawn on what you know are parts of his character
Mm-hmm.
that he may not have directed at you as his son, right? Who ultimately I think you would have done a lot of what he's wanted you to do in terms of like, go out there and achieve and pursue and like, always having that voice in the back of your head, like keeping you going. But then like now, just as well in that, you're able to take the soft parts of him and the parts that are built around care and love, and share that with a number of
Yes.
young people from a fatherly perspective,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean that seems like that ties all in together. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, it sounds good, man. I like it.
So you get to share that with young folks. I mean, but when as you've worked in the school and worked through ministry and engaged, um, youth is that kind of the the mindset to it. Like here's not just my role as a person, as another adult, but here's like where I could bring in a fatherly attitude to this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. Um, it is, and not to be, because you can't be a father to a child who doesn't have a father, but you can be a positive male influence in
Yeah.
their lives, and I kind of I keep that in mind when dealing with our young people, um, especially when it comes to the church, because the makeup of the church nowadays is more so women than men,
Mm-hmm.
and you see a lot more women in church than you see men. So I think it's important that our children see a positive male influence uh, that happens to be a Christian that goes to church,
Yeah.
that tries his best to live good moral values and be a positive person. So um, yeah, I can see that.
I'm real interested in the uh, the difference in the way that, because you're at the eldest end of the millennial scale, so we're still same generation,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like you're like very first millennial.
Yep, yep, right there on the top.
But the difference in the way that you can casually engage in witnessing, right, versus what was a much more strict witness for previous generations, like your grandfathers, that would have been very strict and stringent, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
this conversation has been a real good example of that, right? The witnessing has been intertwined throughout the conversation. It is simply an inherent part of your character, and it shines through in every word that comes out of your mouth.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't have to go out there and actively like state to somebody, "Here is my witness," like you're living it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see that difference between generations in that activity?
I do, and that's how it's supposed to be. I do. Growing up, um, being a Christian and going to church was very legalistic,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like, here's this list of stuff you don't do, and here's the list, which is way smaller, of stuff that you can stuff that you can do. Make sure you live in this realm and not over here with the stuff you don't do. And I just think that's a terrible way to grow up. To just look around and see all the stuff that you can't do, and then you develop these feelings about the people that are doing the stuff that you can't do, and it's no way to live, man. And I've learned that, not to get churchy, but
we're gonna get a little churchy,
yeah, I've learned I've learned that instead of being legalistic and then teaching rules and bylaws and church structures, that we should be just leading people to a relationship with God. And it's just that simple. We all have our own lives to live, and growing up, not that this was pressed on me, but I felt that um, my elders that I looked up to wanted me to be like them, and that they probably didn't know any better. They wanted me to be like them rather than just pointing me in the direction of God and let me be who God has called for me to be. There's a huge difference, and I think if if nowadays being a Christian and being in the church, we have to point people to God, to the cross, to the Bible, so that they can learn to live this life that God has intended for them to live, without just sitting them down and saying, "Hey, this is what I did, and this is what you need to do." That's no way to live. So.
Well, a shepherd doesn't shepherd with their staff, right? They don't just walk and smack a sheep into line. That's
exactly.
That's not how that works. You work to simply corral and let the what's the right word here I'm looking for? We'll just say flow, right, of the flock go that direction, and you actually have to walk that path. I'm using all the spot on metaphors here, right? You have to walk the path, right, in order to get the sheep to follow along, and that makes complete sense. That makes complete sense, and it's refreshing, right? And I hope that it spurs a better, if nothing, not necessarily that there has to be a return to religiosity, but so much that people understand the value in the values of religion anymore, right? That it just feels like that's what we've got so far away from, is the idea of, well, live your life a good way, right? Understand that mistakes will happen and how you have to atone for those sins along the way. People miss a lot of the good stuff through the awful things.
That's true.
What is it? And this is, feel comfortable to be like, I don't want to talk about this subject, but this is just something that spurs in my mind. What does it make you feel like when somebody uses Jesus' name, Jesus' name in vain, not in the sense that we think of cursing, but in the sense of like sacrilege, right? Where, somebody goes out there and they say, Jesus for president or something like that, where it's very clearly misguided language aimed at power and not about, salvation and grace.
Well, I don't think you should. So I get what you're saying. And I think that we have to be careful, especially being Christian. You have to be very careful with how people perceive your actions and what you do. Because, while I'm sure there are a lot of people that will love for Jesus to come down here and be president, I think he had a tough enough time being a savior. Like, he was in the garden weeping and asking the Father, if this is something that you could take from me, please take it, because I don't want to, I'd rather not be crucified today. So, I think that we have to do better at letting Jesus be who he is, and be who we're supposed to be. I think we love to make excuses for the way life is, instead of working to bring solutions to the table to make sure that, because Jesus for president is not a solution for the racism in the world. It's not a solution for the hate that's in the world. The Bible's very clear on the solution on that, and that's to have God's love in our hearts and show it through our lives and how we live. So, trying to give Jesus another title is not going to help. What's going to help is being who you're supposed to be and loving one another. So
that is a sermon title, if I have ever heard one. Giving Jesus another title is not going to help. That's good, Corey. That's good. Corey, I say, should I be saying Pastor?
No,
Pastor, no. Okay,
no.
right.
Corey's fine, man. I don't like titles, man. I tell people all the time, just call me Corey, man. That's who I am. So
it's good. You can be Pastor Corey every now and then, but for the most part, just Corey. That's cool. That's cool. What I don't know what. Shucks, I got like 5 minutes to eat up here, man. We're like so close to that like hour mark that I like to be my sweet spot on this podcast, and it's like I'm just I'm slipping just a little bit. This has been a burner question like 2 or 3 times now in the past like 10 interviews. I'm getting awful with it, and now I'm going down too much of a rabbit hole. But like because you grew up having to have your entire life revolve around the church, and now you're still pretty well ingrained in multiple church lives.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems like is there something that's a breakaway from any of this for you? Like, is there any sort of way that you just step back and say, I'm setting church aside for a 6-hour period of time, and I'm just gonna play my video games today?
Hey, there you go. Well, one thing is I learned to be the church instead of be at church all the time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because growing up it was all about the building, but now I have the understanding that it's more so about the life you live, and not I'm outside of the building. So I keep those principles and I move forward and live life outside the building. And the other thing is video games. I love my PlayStation. So I think my middle child, Kirsten, I think she's kind of taken after that, because she's when I'm on the PS5, she's on the Xbox in the other room playing Roblox or something. So.
Oh, Roblox. Yeah. Of course it's Roblox. You now at episode 44, I believe, have the first official mention of Roblox on the podcast. But that is the most adult thing that we could have a conversation about right now. That company is about to IPO for like $2 billion.
Wow.
Do you get roped into spending money on the stuff for the kids?
Microtransactions, absolutely not. For special occasions. Oh, it's your birthday? Okay, I'll get you one of those little Roblox cards, and you could. But yeah, no, way too much money. Not when you can still enjoy the same game without
for free.
Yes.
Like I play Fortnite and I've never spent a dime.
Perfect.
On it myself. The kids are a different story.
Yeah.
They're still hovering between birthdays and Christmases and Fortnite in-game spends. We're sitting somewhere around $50, which for as much time as we've gotten on it, that's fine. That's a round average pay per game price. Now, in terms of bed sheets and backpacks and there's another $500, I'm sure, over the lifespan of a.
But that's a crazy industry now, and like I'm in that sweet spot, like you said, where games were $30, and then they became 50, and now they're 60 or 70, and now they're at 60 or 70 initially. If you want to continue to enjoy them, you got to pay another 50 down the line for the same game to unlock content that's probably already wrapped in the game somewhere. So it's become a beast, but that doesn't surprise me at all about Roblox. I'm sure they're rich beyond belief over
That is it. Well, now I feel like I'm gonna have to be obligated to, like, hey man, and that's like the play date anymore these days. It's like it's not even meeting in person. It's like, hey, our kids can swap Roblox information.
Perfect. Yeah.
That happened. I went to, this was probably 2 years ago or so. Was going to something foreign with my wife, and we stopped in Nashville to meet a friend, and that friend had his daughter with him, and his daughter and our kids are the same age, and so like our walk away from that was we're Roblox friends now. All right, cool. That's it.
Yep.
It's the equivalent of like meeting somebody at a concert and forever having that one shared memory together. Now you just live in Roblox together. I don't know. I'm sitting here. I'm getting too much on it. I'm just gonna stop the podcast. That's what I'm gonna do. Episode 44. Corey Cawthon, candidate for District 95 School Board. A lot of good reasons as to like the why, but also the how, and not a whole, we talked a lot about some of the technical aspects with Kathy yesterday, but today there was really like, what is that core motivator for somebody, and I think that Corey gave a really good example of what that core motivator may be. So again, episode 44, WTF Carbondale podcast, and as I always say, have a good one, whatever that one may be.